how did we get to competency-based curriculum? What are the roots of this new system? To understand how CBC came about, we have to start from 1995. In 1995, the WTO decided to negotiate what they called a General Agreement in Trade and Services. And basically what this agreement did was to say that now we are not going to trade only with raw materials in terms of things that you get from the ground or that you grow from the ground, but we are also going to make human beings and social services open for business. So one of the things they said is that now public services have to be put up for sale for buyout by the private sector. The other thing they said was that if you get an education in any country, you should be available for export as labor to another country. And we've already started seeing this with doctors and nurses being promised through deals by the government to go and be employed in the UK. And they have also talked about the same for even graduates of TVET. There has been talk of TVET graduates going to work in Uganda and other African countries. So basically, the idea is that once you get an education and you get skills, you're a product for sale to somewhere else. So once they decided this, it meant that education stopped being a social service that is given to citizens, but a product that could be cut up and sold like any other commodity. Who was interested in the education business? One is the tech companies. The tech companies saw an opportunity to replace teachers with technology, and the fantasy was that they could put technology in front of every child and the child would be able to learn on their own without a teacher. The other interested party was the publishing companies for textbooks, because of course, if you're saying that children can learn on their own, it means they need not only computers, but they could also need textbooks. The other company was the examination bodies. In the US, for example, the tests that are given to students are administered from private companies. So if they were able to sell this model of education around the world, then the examination companies making money in the US could now make money in other countries. And in fact, one of those companies has already set up a branch in Kenya. Basically, what this logic did was to say we are going to pull the resources that should go into public schooling and put them in private schools. What explains this madness? Because it's like these guys are salivating for the money that we spend on education, and they've decided to manipulate us to find a way in which if you decide that your child must go to school, you must pay money to these companies. These guys are just greedy, and the greed doesn't go anywhere. It just becomes bigger and bigger, and they want more, and it's becoming destructive, and they don't care. They just don't care. And the other thing they do is that they look at the money that is set in the budget by the government for education, and they tell themselves, this money, almost a quarter of the budget, this money going to teachers and poor kids without coming through our pockets is a waste of our time. We need that money to come to us, and then we can decide whether the public will get it. They're looking at the money for our children and telling themselves that money must come to us because we deserve it. And who are poor Kenyans? They don't deserve anything. Forget that this money is coming from them. These people believe that they deserve every money in the world and are determined to come up with every lie they can to make sure that education money goes into their pockets, even if they have to destroy our children. The other aspect of this power is that they want docile workers. They want workers who will do anything they want and will never say anything back to them. And they hate especially teachers, because teachers are people who are training the next generation. They have an expertise, and because of their knowledge, they are difficult to control. And the other reason they usually hate teachers is because of the union, but now they have disempowered the union so that the union cannot talk. Essentially, CBC is a way of ensuring that knowledge remains for the elites and competencies remain for the poor. Some of our elites today were born in the village. Because they went to school, they were able to get an education, they were able to get a profession, and now they're at the top of companies or different bodies. What they're saying is that nobody from the village can do that anymore. That if they get an education, they will be getting an education to not rise beyond where they are. That's basically what competency-based curriculum is for. It's knowledge for the elites and competencies for the poor. But of course, politicians. Do you think they can come and tell you that directly? They are not going to come and tell you that even if we are giving you education, we don't want you to become lawyers, doctors. We don't want you to do well. There's no politician who is going to tell you that. They are going to lie. So what lies have they been telling us? And that's what I'm calling the spin. They are using the things that we want and twisting them to sound like they are still giving us what we want, but actually they are giving us something else. So the first one is that they tell us that 844 is so bad, it needs to go. So in your panic about 844, you think that they are saying that let's reform the education so that it can be good for our children. That's not what they are saying. They are saying we need an education system with less content so that it's easier to replace the teachers with computers. That's what they mean. But of course, they're not going to tell you that because they know they'll get into trouble with the teachers. And they know that parents are going to say, what do you mean my child in front of a computer? So they come out through the other end and they tell us, no, it's because there's a problem with 844. So let's remove it. The second thing they tell us is that the problem with schools is that they try to teach everybody in the same way and they don't recognize individual ability and talent. That's a lie. First of all, how is it that under 844 not everybody became a teacher or not everybody became a doctor? It's because people got into different things. People are now in different jobs. So they can't say that that was the problem with 844. But what they really, really want when they're telling you individual ability, what they really want is what they mean is personal learning. In fact, some places they call it personalized learning. Personalized learning means the child sits in front of a computer and learns without the teachers. But what you're hearing is, oh, the teacher will care for me. There is no teacher to care about individual students. Not in this CBC. Eventually, the teacher needs to go. That's why you're seeing schools which have classes of 80, 90 kids being taught by one teacher. The people in power don't have a problem with that. They want it to be like that. So that they can now say, oh, if the teacher is not giving you attention, then you need to go home and here is a tablet. Go and learn with this one. Then you will learn personally. You're not being taught the same way as everybody else. Another line they have given us is that parents are the best nurturer of the children, and that's why they need to be more involved in the lives of their children. That is simply not true. That story forgets that parents are facilitated by society to raise their child. Remember, for example, the way parents sat in the traffic on Mombasa Road. Was it their fault that they were not able to get home on time to see their children? How are we saying that parents need to raise their children and we are not giving them the incomes they need? We're not giving them the health insurance they need. We are not giving them the schools that they need. We are making life so difficult for parents that some parents are so poor they have to smuggle out their kids in a bag from the hospital. And when they do that, they are arrested. Parents need social support to raise their children properly. But now what is happening is that they are being told the school is not going to take care of education. That is now your job as the parent. The government has no right to be telling us about how to parent our kids. These are people who cannot take care of 2 billion shillings a day that is stolen. 2 billion shillings which comes from our work. How are they now the ones to tell us how to parent and they can't take care of our resources? They should not be lecturing us about parenting. They should be giving us the social support so that parents can be able to raise their children in dignity. And parents need an enabling environment. But when they're telling us about parental involvement, what they really mean is that parents should make up for the gaps of competency-based curriculum. So whatever is not taught in the school system, now that the curriculum is being narrowed, it's the parents to do that work. And you realize that is not only a way of privatizing the system, but it's also a way of entrenching inequality. Because now children's education will depend on the homes they came from. Basically, what we are seeing is people who are so ungrateful for the opportunities they got when they were younger. Most of these people making the decisions came from humble backgrounds. Now they are where they are because of the education they've got. And instead of saying, I want that for the next child who was like me, they are saying, now I want to make sure that this is mine and mine alone. They contradict what Michelle Obama said.
When you've worked hard and done well and walked through that doorway of opportunity, you do not slam it shut behind you. No, you reach back and you give other folks the same chances that help you succeed.
And that is the opposite of what's happening here. We are having people who are saying, I went through the system and I got this opportunity. I'm not going to let anybody else in. That is so selfish. It is so anti-African. And where would we be if our ancestors thought like that? We would not be where we are today. They fought not knowing whether they would get what they were fighting for. But they knew at least their children would get it. We have to honor them and do the same. The other lie they have told us is that employers think our children are not getting the skills they need for the market. Again, why should employers be the only ones determining how we get an education? In fact, there's a study that says about 60 to 70% of university students want to be self-employed. So it's not that people want to go and be employed. It's just that people have no money to start businesses. The business regulations are so bad. We are being taxed everywhere. And you saw what happened to the Kianjokoma brothers. You start a business, you still have to deal with the police. So how can they tell us that the problem is that we don't have the right skills from the education system? That is not true. And when they're telling us that, what they really want is that our children do not get an education that allows them to know their history and ask questions. They don't want people to be saying, if I'm doing an internship, you must pay me because I am doing work for you. That's what they don't want. They want workers who will accept to be paid anything, who will be given kibarua and they will accept. And in fact, they've started calling that kibarua gig economy so that they can exploit people. They are lying. This isn't about our qualifications and it's not about employers. They basically want unskilled labor, and the few who are allowed to make it are now going to be signed off to other countries to go and work there. As if even us, we don't have aspirations. It's as if we don't have families. It's as if we don't want to stay in this Kenya and live in dignity. It's as if we don't want to give our skills to our people. It's like skills are for sale. It's not for helping our people. And why are they calling it competency? Competency is not what you think it is. Competency is about limiting knowledge. So now what happens in the classroom is that it doesn't matter what a kid knows. What matters is the evidence they can produce. And that's why you parents are being told to take things to school. Because the teacher has been told, it doesn't matter if a child says in the classroom, I know this, I know this, I know this. What matters is what can they do. And how will you know what they can do if they bring evidence from home? Competency also, like I said, it removes the role of the teacher. So that's why, again, the teachers are asking for so much material. What it is making teachers do is to make teachers like investigators, to provide the evidence that kids know. But what the teacher thinks about the child, how the teacher is teaching the child, KICD and NEC are not interested. They don't care what the teacher thinks. What they want is paper evidence and photos. And then competency also, because of this idea that what kids know doesn't matter, they break knowledge into small bits that are disconnected. A kid will be able to competently cook, wash dishes, but whether that kid will help in the tasks at the home, it doesn't matter. Competency doesn't care. What competency says is, can you cook, can you clean, can you sweep? It doesn't say, are you a person who helps at the tasks with the tasks at the home? And KICD is going to tell you that what I'm saying is not true. And maybe they actually believe that I am lying. It's possible. But the system, the way it is designed, it's designed so that the tasks are never connected. And what is going to happen is that you're going to come out with a person who doesn't know the connection between what they think, what they do, and the larger society. Because that knowledge it's abstract knowledge which cannot be proved. So they don't care. And that's going to be a problem for you as parents, because you'll be having teenagers and young adults who cannot connect to society. Because all they have is skills, but they can't understand what is happening in the world around them. So competency narrows the curriculum. You're being taught less. And it's also removing the larger historical things. You know, the things that help you make sense of the world. Identity, history, culture. They are removing those things so that people are just skills. Mkono. They are removing our brains so that the only thing we have is hands, and then foreigners can come and tell us what to do, and all we do is implement. What that will do is that it will entrench inequality. Why? Because if every one of us is doing personalized learning and we don't understand about society, we won't care if the child next door has a meal on their plate. We won't care whether they are getting an education. So even this, when they are saying that this personalized learning, it's a lie. It's a lie. They're making us disconnect from each other and not care for one another. Because they're saying what matters is me, myself, and I, how I learn and what my hands can do. It doesn't matter how I relate to other people. And the KICD is going to tell you, no, there's a values curriculum. But what's the point of a values curriculum? A values curriculum in CBC is like cutting you up and then stitching you and said that, look, you are okay. Why cut me in the first place? Why have a values curriculum when in the other subjects you're negating values? It doesn't make sense. And what this competency idea does is that it makes us forget that education is diverse. There are different types of education we get in life. The education parents give us is different from the education the teachers give us. Homes give us different education from the schools. Homes give us identity, emotional stability. They give us a work ethic. They give us a sense of community. Teachers teach us knowledge like literacy, numeracy, and other technical skills that you cannot get at the home. So for them to tell us that parents will be helping us, what they are basically saying is that teachers and parents give the same education. And the reason they are doing it is because they eventually want to remove the teachers. But parents don't know what the teachers know. And teachers can't give what the parents can. Those two types of education should be kept intact. They should do for the child what they do for the child, and they shouldn't be made as if they are the same. But competency tries to tell us that teachers and parents are the same. Competency also refuses to acknowledge that children cannot learn from machines alone. Children need human guidance. In fact, before the age of 12, 13, children are awkward with their hands, with their eyes. They can't tell that, who I am talking to on the screen is somebody else somewhere else. They don't yet have those cognitive skills. That's what we call them. They don't have those skills. But now they are being forced to have adult skills, and they are only children. That's abuse. Children cannot learn from machines alone. They cannot learn from textbooks alone. They need human guidance, and our teachers should be empowered to give that guidance to them. Instead, they are being disempowered. Competency also forgets that education is both knowledge and skills. You can't have knowledge without skills. And this is a lie that the private sector keeps telling us. It's like saying that I can be a chef without knowing the nutritional value of food. What is that? You need both knowledge and skills so that you keep combining. And also, the more you work, the more knowledge you get. That's what an expert is. An expert is somebody who keeps working and gaining knowledge as they work. So what competency is telling us is that they don't want expertise and they don't want us to be good at what we do. Education is both knowledge and skills. It's not one or the other. And not all knowledge that we have is immediately observable. For example, my knowledge of history as Kenyans makes me able to make decisions in the classroom. But so you can't now come and tell me what is the use of knowing this history. It helps my decisions. It helps me teach. Or you can't tell a plumber there's no point of knowing the properties of water. Just know how to fix a tap. But the properties of water decides how you pipe the water. So this story of there's no knowledge without skills, that's rubbish. And the reason why they want us to believe that is, like I said, they just want people who will do things without asking how it will help us. They want us disconnected from our environment and our cultures and our communities. Skills without knowledge makes us robots, basically. And the other thing is that life is more than employment. We work, some of us, we might work from 8 to 5, but we have families. We have communities. If we don't have knowledge that helps us live with one another, what are we? And KICD will say, there's the value curriculum, but there's a parental involvement. But that's not the point, because if the knowledge I am getting is making me antisocial, what's the point of then teaching me social ethics? Like I said, it's like cutting my hand and then putting a bandage and telling me, look, I have done good for you because I've given you a bandage. Why don't you just stop cutting me in the first place? Let my hand work without the wound. From what I've said, what would we say is the philosophy of competence? And I'm not just talking about CBC, the very idea of competence. What is its philosophy? What does it assume is true? One is that some people don't deserve a good education because they were not talented that way. And this is the lie that parents are not seeing when they are celebrating the idea of talent. The idea of talent is basically to say how you were born. It's not what you can do, it's how you are born. And if we accept for the idea of talent to be used in education, basically we are saying that some people don't deserve to be educated because they are not talented. Talent is a very dangerous idea and we should not accept it. It's going to discriminate against the poor and against marginalized areas. For example, teachers in Rift Valley can be told there's no use of teaching mathematics to people in Rift Valley because they can run. They are talented that way. How do we know? What right does a teacher or the government have to say somebody is talented this way? It's only God who gives us talent. Let people be given the education, then how they use their talent is their own initiative. What we need to do is to provide ample education for everybody so that their talent can shine. It's not up to the teachers or the school system to say so and so is talented and so and so is not talented. The other philosophy of this competence education is that education is a commodity which should be accessed based on whether we can afford. So when they are telling us about parental involvement, as you have seen, parental involvement means what can the parent afford to give. So if competency is narrowing the curriculum, it means that any knowledge which the child will need in addition to competency has to come from the parent. But can the parent afford? Does the parent have those skills? Making education a commodity is saying we want an unequal system where the rich get the education that will make them succeed in society and where the poor have to sukuma. Watajisort. Is that the society we want? And maybe middle-class parents will think, I can provide. But with COVID, we've seen how our incomes have gone down. Who says you will always be able to provide? We need a society where we are not feeling insecure. When you have a society like that, even if you have resources today, you're always insecure. You're always thinking, if I have an accident, if I'm not there, I don't know how my child will survive. Do we want such a society? There is no success when we are not all succeeding. We must all be successful. Because that means that if something happens to me, then I don't have to worry what happens to my family. So education should not be a commodity, it should be a social value. And we should be interested in the education for everybody, not just for our own children. The other philosophy, belief in competence, is that the poor do not know what is good for them, and that the rich and the bureaucrats, because they have papers, they have the right to make decisions on behalf of the poor. Every human being has the capacity to understand. We have to believe it. And even if they don't, that's not our decision to make. We have to let people also want to do something with their lives. If a poor person in Mathare has dreams for her child to become a doctor, what is wrong with that? Why are we saying that, oh, she's not competent because of where she comes from? Who are we to make that decision? Our job is to provide the education to help that parent in Mathare get that education. And then whether the child becomes a doctor or not becomes something else. But it's our duty to make sure that the opportunity has been availed. And then the other philosophy of competence is that human beings are only tools for working for others. And that's why at the beginning of this curriculum in 2017, we kept being told it's about employment, it's about employment. It's as if we don't have a work outside employment. And who says we want to be employed? So basically, they are saying the only knowledge we need is the one that employers want. But employers employ only 2 million Kenyans in this Kenya. Are we going to have an education to serve only the people who employ 2 million Kenyans? What about the other 48 million? Are we saying that there is no education system that should take them into account? The philosophy we need should be a philosophy of care, of human dignity, and the belief that all human beings are created in the image of God. That everybody deserves an equal chance. To get an equal chance doesn't mean you all become the same. It just means you have the same opportunities to get where you want to go. And I'm not saying that that can be accomplished in 1 year, But it should be an aspiration. It should be something that we want. But CBC doesn't want that. It wants people to accept limited opportunities. CBC is basically saying, we, the government, we are not going to strive to educate all children. What we are going to do now, because we are not educating all children now, we are going to stop aspiring for it. Let's set ourselves a lower goal of making kids go back to their parents and asking their parents why they don't have opportunities. Let it not be our responsibility. Let it be for the parents. So we are not going to provide education for everybody. We are not going to aim to provide education for everybody. What we are going to do is to say, kila mtu ajisort. If you didn't make it, it's because your parents did not give you the right involvement. This is why people have said that competency as a teaching approach is a system designed for maximum measurability, meaning I should be able to measure the evidence, delivered increasingly through technology. So we are actually on that path to eventually making teachers irrelevant, and narrowly focused on equipping students for short-term employability. Remember the short term, because some of you are 30, 40 years old. What is going to happen to us when people are your age if we are given competency-based curriculum? It means they're not thinking of us beyond a certain age. Immediately you get a job, you stop mattering. So to say that we are only going to educate for employment in this particular job, they are basically saying they don't expect you to live beyond a certain age. And let me tell you what will happen. After the children get their skills or whatever, see now a next cohort will be coming. Your children will be told, step aside, we are getting more competent people. What is going to happen to us after the first job? And in Australia, there's been a study that shows that when they train workers on competency-based curriculum and the factory for which they were trained moves to another country, those workers are left with skills but no one to employ them. And then they have to retrain again. And many times they are already parents, they don't have the money to retrain. And you've even seen what is happening in TSC. Now TSC is telling teachers that they have to retrain every 5 years. And if they don't have the 30,000 for retraining, they will not be allowed to teach. What madness is this? And the people who are implementing this madness are bureaucrats in permanent jobs in government, and they are doing it for companies, which have no intention to pay us enough to live decently and to retire. So how did we accept this system? The first reason is the one almost every Kenyan knows: political legacies. There could have been reforms done within 844, but there's no ribbon to cut, there's no foundation stone to lay, there's no glory in reforming a system that is already there. So what do? You impose a new system so that you can tell people, look, I changed the system. And what people now are saying is that, oh, we changed the system, but they are refusing to answer, did we change it for the better? Change is natural to humanity. It is not something that is imposed on you. Change that is imposed is called violence. It's called colonialism. That is change which is imposed. We did not need a new system. We could have improved the system that we had. But that is not politically convenient. It's not good for the optics. It's not visible. It's not a campaign promise. It doesn't look very nice on the brochures. But when you say, oh, we replaced the system, then you look like you have a big legacy. But we could be running over the cliff. The other reason why we got CBC was career progression. Look at all the characters, the bureaucratic characters, the civil servants who are behind CBC in 2017. The top ones have all been promoted. So there's a personal interest in them. So what do? First of all, what we believe really matters. This fear we have that we are being scared into by the media and the government, that, oh, we can't go back to 844. We must stop equating the withdrawal of CBC to going back. An education system is the people in the system. It's not the curriculum. It's not the instructions from Jogoo House. It's the teachers and the kids and the communities. So teachers who are already familiar with the system that is being replaced, they will be able to recover. And then we can stabilize the system and make the changes within the system. But as long as we have this change being posed from outside, it's traumatic. It's traumatic to teachers who are also being given other rules to follow. The kids are confused because the parents are confused. So we need to weigh the two. Do we want a continued state of confusion and crisis, or do we want to stabilize the system and then change it with the teachers and the kids that we have? It's up to us to decide, but don't listen to the scaremongers. Don't listen to the fear. The people who stabilize the system are the teachers. It's not the government. It's not the bureaucrats who are getting promotions. It's the teachers. So if we stop making the teachers so nervous and so anxious that they don't want to lose their jobs, then we will be able to stabilize the system and we'll be able to do what is best for our children. Our children need stability. Nobody needs stability more than children. And that's what we should aim right now after this huge disruption that has caused so much chaos. And then remember that if we withdraw CBC, the teachers already know the system. They can suggest what we can do. Part of the problem with CBC was that teachers were not involved. Their opinions were not considered. In conclusion, what I want to say is that we really need to think about our children and our health as a society. We can't keep doing these disruptions. From the disruption of 1895, our lives have been being disrupted with things that are only in the interests of a few and that are causing so much pain to everybody else. And even the education system, this thing we are being given of competence is not new. The colonialists were saying the same thing, that they just want Africans with skill and no knowledge. So we need to think, what legacy are we leaving our children? We have to stand up and be counted so that when our children are 2021, they know that we fought. And just the way as we look at history and we see who fought for us, let that be our legacy. Let us say no to CBC. Please, if you have any questions, I really would like to answer them. Send me any questions. I will answer them in another video. My email is written there, kazinimaisha@gmail.com. And I welcome you to look at the other videos that I have done about education and work and the narratives and the stories we tell about ourselves. Thank you for listening to me. If you can, please share this video so that we can reach more parents and more people and do what is the best for our children.